welcome to the channel. I'm back to break down this opening night NBA DFS slate on DraftKings and FanDuel. Excited to get into it. The NBA season is finally back and looking forward to getting you guys back in that green, winning some money, going over some key stats, all the games, all the above. Just basketball being back will be fun. Before we get into a quick reminder that if you do enjoy the content at any point in this video, if you could please take a moment to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future content that I upload. That would be greatly appreciated. I do also cover NFL DFS, MLB DFS on this channel, so I'll be around all season long for NBA, all the other sports, all that fun stuff. And don't forget to stay tuned to the end of the video for my lock of the night, fan favorite segment on this channel if you watched last year. And lastly, what a lot of people used for that lock of the night last year for a Prize Picks pick, this video is sponsored by Prize Picks. Sign up today, use promo code KJK DFS to receive a deposit match when you deposit up to $100 over there. Last season, I got a lot of feedback that people were using my picks to go ahead and cash in over on Prize Picks. And now that I partner with them, it's great because I love the format. I can give you guys the picks right on here. You can use my lock of the night as always for the over pick over there, which a lot of people loved to do last year. And I'll be giving you two of my favorite picks every night as well over there on Prize Picks that I'll be locking in based off my projections and what I expect to be going on in these games. So with that being said, let's go ahead and start breaking down this opening night slate. We'll go ahead and start on DraftKings first. We'll talk about FanDuel in the latter half of the video. And as always, we will go game by game here. First game on the slate, we have Brooklyn taking on Milwaukee. The biggest news here is going to be that Kyrie Irving will be out for the foreseeable future. Some stuff going on with him, unwilling to take the vaccine and that kind of thing. So he's not going to be willing to participate in this one. He'll be out for an expected period of time. We also do have Dante DiVincenzo and Bobby Portis out on the Milwaukee side. So a few things to note there. Number one thing I will say on the slate that really stands out to me is Kevin Durant and James Harden. There's no Kyrie Irving. The big three, when you take Kyrie Irving out of the equation, the usage rate is going to climb in a major way for these guys. I expect Kevin Durant and James Harden both to be big priorities for me, not to mention when you look at the over-under in this game does have a 238 over-under in comparison to only a 228.5 over-under in the other game. I think it's by far, heads and tails above the other game as far as pace, whatever you want to call it. It's way ahead of it. I want to be prioritizing pieces in this game, and it all starts with Kevin Durant and James Harden, with there being no Kyrie Irving. Like I said, I'd expect them to get massive minutes. I expect their usage rates to really bump up here, and I'd expect for them to both have very big games. Now, with that being said, this has also opened up some value on the Brooklyn side as far as from the guard aspect, etc., because there is no Kyrie Irving. We have Bruce Brown, who I think is priced way too cheap here for this opening night game here at only a 3.6 price tag on DraftKings. I mean, the guy is expected to start. He's going to get plenty of minutes here. For the time being, as far as my projection, I have him projected to go out there and play, 22 minutes. That's just a raw projection from a first look aspect as well. And he's just too cheap. He can shoot the three ball. He can do it all on DraftKings at 3.6. That's too cheap for a guy that's a starting guard. And you get the 3-point bonus over here on DraftKings. I'll talk about some scoring as we go along here, but there are some scoring discrepancies as well between DraftKings and FanDuel. DraftKings is much more, I would say, offensive oriented, whereas FanDuel you can kind of rack up the points for blocks and steals, so we'll get into that as well. But yeah, so Bruce Brown, too cheap in my opinion. LaMarcus Aldridge, another guy that's really standing out for me from a first look aspect here at only 3.9 on DraftKings. That's too cheap. I've got him projected to go out there for about 24 minutes. A guy that's right around a 1 DK point per minute producer. Same thing with Bruce Brown. Last year he was a 0.92 per minute producer as far as DraftKings points. Guys are both just way too cheap. So on the Brooklyn side, love Kevin Durant. I love James Harden. I think they're both going to get massive usage as mentioned. And then a few of the pieces that you can be stacking up around them we talked about. Also, DeAndre Brembry, another pickup here for this Brooklyn squad that's expected to get some pretty good run here. Also a guy that's a pretty decent fantasy point per minute producer. He's 3,100. It's also a price tag thing. I mean, that's too cheap for a guy that's expected to be coming off the bench and getting a decent amount of minutes. Out of all the guys I've mentioned so far, he'd be my least favorite as far as from a DK point per minute. He doesn't grade out quite as well as these guys with only a 0.77 DK point per minute. But if he's projected to play around like 20 minutes or so, which he could in this rotation, I mean, obviously, once we start going along the season here, seeing how these coaches are going to be playing their rotations, figuring out who's playing, what, we're going to have a lot more of a better idea. Opening night can be a little bit of a guessing game. but I do think that DeAndre Brumby should get a decent amount of minutes here. Joe Harris, expected to have a decent role here. Not exactly popping as one of my top plays, but he does have the ability to really shoot the 3-ball, and if he gets hot, he can always go out there and go off, especially on DraftKings where you get that 3-point bonus. So I wouldn't call you crazy if you're going there, but do I think he's a priority for me on this slate? Not really. And then also another guy who could possibly be seeing a lot more minutes on this Brooklyn squad would be Patty Mills. So Patty Mills finally out of that San Antonio Spurs minutes trap, Greg Popovich environment. And he's a guy that I think that a lot of people really have enjoyed playing in DFS over the years. And for good reason. He's a good fantasy point per minute producer. As far as last season and how Patty Mills produced, he was around 0.75 DK points per minute. I mean, not terrible at all. He can shoot the 3-ball as well, do all that stuff. And once again, he's just too cheap at 3.7. And he's the last guy that I'd really be looking to here. As far as on the Milwaukee side, it's pretty clear to me where we're going to be looking. We talked about the big three for Brooklyn when they're healthy. Milwaukee side, they have their big three, and they're healthy. It's Giannis, Drew Holiday, and Chris Middleton. It's really that simple. All the usage is going to flow through those three guys. Giannis at 10K. Brooklyn, a team that was absolutely dreadful defensively last year. I have my Patreon sheet pulled up here as far as the team stats summary. It's opening night. I'm just going to go ahead and give you guys a sneak peek as to last year. Now, of course, these stats are going to update throughout the season. We're going to get a different look. These teams are going to be a little bit different this year. But as far as the defensive rank for Brooklyn last year, they were the 21st best team defensively. And if you looked at them towards the latter half of the year when they acquired Kyrie, Kevin Durant, James Harden, I mean, the defense was looking really, really bad. So I have no issues with targeting Brooklyn's defense whatsoever with Giannis. Really, with Giannis, the only thing is you can make an argument he's the best fantasy point per minute producer in the league as far from a DK point perspective. I mean, I think he was last year, 1.69 DK points per minute, but the Bucks aren't really big on pushing his minutes. So I find that even though he can go up there and have a big game, also the Bucks are oftentimes involved in blowouts, which is another thing that's involved in NBA. I will say for this opening night, I don't think we have to worry about that. I mean, we have a half-point spread in favor of the Brooklyn Nets and a 3-point spread in favor of the Lakers. So these games both expected to stay close. I don't think that's going to be an issue at all. And to be honest with you, for that reason, I will have a lot more interest in Giannis than I would in a lot of games as we go along the season, I have a feeling, because oftentimes I'm just not playing him. But yeah, it's Giannis, Middleton, and then Drew Holiday. All three of these guys, great plays. If I had to grade them out as far as where I'd be prioritizing based on price tag and all that stuff, I would rank them in terms of 1 being Drew Holiday, 2 being Chris Middleton, and 3 being Giannis Antetokounmpo. Keep in mind, Giannis has such a ceiling that's just a raw projection aspect. You can certainly be playing him, but yeah, these 3 guys really make a lot of sense for me. And then as far as from a value aspect, there's not going to be any Connaughton as we start. I'm sorry, not Connaughton. Dante DiVincenzo, as we talked about, and Grayson Allen's expected to get the start here. So at only 3, a guy that can shoot the basketball, definitely going to be an interesting option for sure. Another salary relief guy that's really popping for me from a value aspect. And I definitely have a lot of interest in Grayson Allen. Lastly, one guy that's really popping my model right now, if we see him get minutes, and there is no healthy Bobby Portis right now, so a guy that we're going to have to learn the name of. I'm just going to go ahead and call him Mamu for now, because this last name is ridiculous, but Mamu Kalashvili. There's my attempt. There's my terrible attempt to pronounce, but he's the 54th overall pick in the summer draft. Shows some nice upside. Had a great preseason. He just went out and scored 20 points, 11 rebounds over 30 minutes, and against the same Nets team. Now, keep in mind that's preseason. It doesn't really mean anything. But he's only 3K. He's the backup big man right now, and if he gets any sort of minutes, that's a real good bargain here, especially if we're seeing that he's going to come at some lower ownership. So I'm definitely intrigued to see where he's falling in as far as ownership projections are concerned. And he's one guy that I wanted to mention here before we move along. So yeah, those are the main guys I'd be looking to. Blake Griffin's expected to start at 5.4 on Brooklyn. If you want to go to him, sure. I'm just honestly not getting that excited. He's going to play against Brook Lopez, who Brook Lopez likes to go out on the arc and shoot a lot of threes, so he's probably not going to be on the rim a lot. Honestly, both these guys, their rebounding upside is probably going to be very limited. That's one thing I talk about often throughout the season as we go along here. You got to kind of know the personnel. Brook Lopez is a guy that loves to shoot threes. He'll sit out by the arc a lot of times. That's going to affect Blake Griffin's rebounding upside in a negative way. So So, that'd be my approach there. Speaking of Brook Lopez, he's definitely a viable option at 5'9" at the center position on DraftKings. He's a guy that can really shoot the three. We just talked about it. And if he gets hot on DraftKings, that's what I'm looking for. That 3-point bonus on DraftKings. No issues with it going to him. And then Pat Connaughton, who I did kind of slip up and say could be an interesting option as well, with there being no Dante DiVincenzo. So, a lot of time on that game, but it's only a 2-game slate. I want to break these games down. Honestly, that's my favorite of the two by far. This next game, we're probably not going to have nearly as much interest in. And the Golden State Warriors taking on the LA Lakers. This game, as mentioned, does have a 10-point differential as far as over-under. It's a 228.5 over-under as compared to that 238 over-under. Not going to be nearly as friendly of a fantasy environment. And I talked about this Lakers defense being pretty good last season. If I didn't, I meant to. The Lakers' second best overall defense on the season last year. They're not really a team that I love to target all that much. We do have some pretty big usage monsters here in Stephen Curry, Jordan Poole, Andrew Wiggins. And even with that being said, though, I think this team plays pretty balanced overall for Golden State. And with the addition of Russell Westbrook on the Los Angeles Lakers, I think that's going to be cutting into a lot of LeBron James and Anthony Davis's usage. So I talked about my favorite prize picks. We'll go ahead and give them to you right now because I have two unders that I really like in this game. The first is going to be Mr. Stephen Curry at 54.5 fantasy points. I think that's way too high for this game environment. The Lakers defense, they added DeAndre Jordan. Finishing around the rim is not going to be any easier when you have Anthony Davis, DeAndre Jordan, LeBron James swarming at you. Stephen Curry, he's very clearly the best player on the Golden State Warriors. So what do you think the Lakers are going to try to do to win this game? They're going to clamp down on Curry. And I just think this line's set way too high for opening night. So Stephen Curry at 54.5, I like the under on that. And the other under that I like is his teammate in Jordan Poole at 31. Both of these guys, I like the under on prize picks. Go ahead and lock them in for my prize picks on opening night. Love it. Here's an example. You can do 2, 3, 4, or 5 players, win that prize. So if we lock in those 2 picks, go ahead and bet whatever we'd like. Let's say $20, we win our 40, which I'll be depositing and getting my action over there on prize picks with those picks. So like both of them, like both the unders, I should say. Don't really like them in the fantasy aspect. But yeah, Stephen Curry, not that high on, honestly. I'd rather be prioritizing, like I said, we have James Harden and Kevin Durant. They by far are going to be priorities for me. As far as my favorite play from this game, from a first glance aspect, it's going to be some value plays, honestly. I mean, like Carmelo Anthony, the new addition for the Lakers at 3,900 on DraftKings is standing out to me for sure. Coming over, I'd expect him to get a decent amount of minutes, and he's just really cheap for a DraftKings scoring format that he matches up with pretty well. He's pretty much just a pure shooter at this point in his career. I'm definitely going to like that price tag quite a bit. And then we also have Kent Bazemore on the Lakers coming over. He's expected to get a lot more minutes. Kendrick Nunn, also another guy that I'd be looking to. Kendrick Nunn, I think, from a salary aspect. So when you have a lower pace game here, right? I'm not as interested quite as much in the stars. But with that being said, you can get your exposure with your value plays. So maybe everyone else plays LeBron. You drop down to the value plays in this game. You get the guys that are cheap that can actually get there for the pace of this game. Like, this pace isn't very fast. A 228.5 over under in today's NBA is not a very high total. Some of these games we saw last year, these totals are getting really high. That's just a fast-paced game. The way the game's played has changed over the years. I'm going to be targeting the cheap guys with value price tags that I can get the bang for my buck. Bazemore is the guy that I mentioned here at 3.6, another guy that's from a value play. I mean, Kendrick Nunn is the guy I'm getting most excited about. When you look at his stats last year, he had 0.86 DK points per minute. But it's not like Kent Bazemore is a pushover either. He had 0.85 DK points per minute over the season last year. Carmelo Anthony had 0.92 DK points per minute. So these are 3 guys on the Lakers side that I think are way too cheap in this game that I think you can definitely take advantage of from a value aspect. Like I said, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Russell Westbrook, out of the 3 guys, honestly, my favorite would be Russell Westbrook, and that's because he's just an absolute stat stuffer. But it'll be interesting to see how that's going to work with Anthony Davis, Westbrook. Famous for his triple doubles. You get the triple double bonus on DraftKings, and LeBron James, famous for his triple doubles. If anything, I think these guys are going to dig into each other's upside so much. It's just going to be difficult. I don't know why I want to go here when we have a Nets team that's without Kyrie Irving, and we have James Harden and Kevin Durant. It's a no-brainer for me as far as I'm concerned. Not to be negative, but that's just the case. As far as anyone else in this game I'd be looking to, LeBron James, we talked about him. He grades out as a decent play overall. All these guys are going to grade out as decent plays because they're great DK point per minute producers, but you also have to factor in the different lineup build here. As far as the new Lakers team, I'm not getting as excited. As far as anyone else on this team, that's probably going to be about it. As far as DraftKings, over to FanDuel before I let you guys go, and I give you my lock of the night as well. Give you guys, a lot of times, these are going to be pretty similar. There's going to be price differences and stuff on both respective sites. So as far as the guys that stand out to me, that might be a little bit of a different price tag over here. We talked about a lot of the guys that I like, honestly. LaMarcus Aldridge, I think, is too cheap. He has multi-positional eligibility over here, the center and power forward position at only 4,100. Great fantasy point per minute producer on FanDuel as well. I mentioned you get more points for blocks and steals over here. So a guy like LaMarcus Aldridge that can rock up blocking the steals, like looking at some of the games he was healthy, you can see here, as far as his blocks and steals, 3 blocks, 2 blocks, 2 blocks, 3 blocks when he was playing consistently. That's very big on FanDuel. A guy that can block a lot of shots, a guy that can steal a lot of shots, it goes a long way, and I'll talk about it frequently. There's certain guys, off the top of my head, I'm struggling to come up with one. But stocky point guys that just get steals. TJ McConnell, that's what I was thinking of. TJ McConnell, if you've been playing DFS for a while, he's a guy that I really won't touch typically unless someone's out. He has to come in and get some more minutes. But if someone's out and he's able to get even 10 more minutes on FanDuel, the guy's gotten 10 steals before. So this is stuff that I think about when I'm talking about over here on FanDuel. Bembry we talked about. He has some steal upside. One guy I think that's a little too cheap over here in comparison to DraftKings would be Joe Harris. I don't really like playing Joe Harris on FanDuel because he's a lot more shooting reliant. Like I said, more defensive-minded on FanDuel, honestly. The scoring becomes... I don't like relying on guys that are very scoring reliant on FanDuel. And DraftKings, you can get away with it. A little bit of different pricing structure. Kendrick Nunn, also scoring reliant, but he also is cheap on FanDuel at only 4,400. I expressed my love for him over on DraftKings. I think that I like him on FanDuel as well. If he's good to go here at 4,400, I think that's too cheap. So once again, I like Kendrick Nunn. We already reviewed that. I'm trying to see if there's anyone that stands out to me here on my list that we didn't quite talk about as much on DraftKings. I would say if there's one guy, we talked about Mamu. He's minimum salary over here as well. I think it's a lot riskier to be going with that type of a play on FanDuel. It's just a different structure here. The minimum salary guy on DraftKings, you can get away with a lot more than FanDuel, unless you really know he's going to get the minutes that could qualify. Kind of hard to explain, a lot to get into, but for people that have been playing for a while, I think you know what I mean here. I'm not quite as interested in that. I would say the biggest guy over here on FanDuel that might be able to pay off for you, that could get some decent minutes, would be Otto Porter Jr. I didn't talk about him on DraftKings, and he's a guy that can definitely rack up the steals and blocks when he's healthy. He's 4,400 on this new Warriors team. I think he should have a solidified role. Looking at the first game where he's healthy, he played 20 minutes. He had 3 steals in that one game. That's the only game that's showing on the game log on FanDuel, so I guess that's a good example to show you. And then Kent Bazemore, we talked about him over on DraftKings as well, but he's another guy that can rack up the steals for you at 4,700 over here on FanDuel. Honestly, for the most part, though, I'd say most of these price tags are pretty similar. Pretty similar priorities for me over here. For the most part, Kevin Durant, Giannis Antetokounmpo, blocks and steals, they're going to be much more of a better play over here, I would say, but overall, I think we've talked about it. The last guy I would say that really stands out over here in comparison to DraftKings would be Andrew Wiggins at 7,200. Also a guy that gets lots of blocks and steals, active on defense. I like that on FanDuel. And then you got Draymond Green as well on that team that you could bring up at 7K. He's pretty good for those blocks and steals as well. So that's my overall breakdown of this 2-game opening night slate. I gave you guys my prize picks. I gave you my DraftKings picks, my FanDuel picks. And before I let you guys go, I got to give you my lock of the night. And my lock of the night tonight is going to be James Harden taking on this Milwaukee Bucks squad. We had mentioned no Kyrie Irving, and who does that directly impact the most? James Harden. I'd expect him to take on the full on-ball handling duties here at the point guard position. Now, he doesn't get the easiest matchup taking on Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday, a very good defender, but when you look at his usage overall and the minutes he's expected to get, very hard to avoid him with no Kyrie Irving. Put up 1.52 DK points per minute last year, and as far as FanDuel, 1.43 FanDuel points per minute. Expected to be out there for 35 plus minutes, getting plenty of run here in an up-tempo game, a game that tops the other game by a total of 10 points. No Kyrie Irving, he gets the usage bump. Love this spot for James Harden. Get him in your lineups because he is my lock of the night. So there you have it, guys. James Harden, get him in your lineups. And that is all from me in this one. If you did enjoy the content, if you could please take a moment to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future content that I upload. That would be greatly appreciated. Don't forget to check out PrizePicks. Use promo code KJK DFS to receive that deposit bonus up to $100 when you sign up today. And don't forget to check out my premium package. You get access to all my projections, my rankings, my core plays, all that fun stuff. Link below in the description. Wish you guys all the best of luck on this opening night slate, and we will see you in the next one.